I've got a design hack to help ensure you get the most audience engagement for your match. But there's a catch. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and here on my channel, I make videos for professional wrestlers no matter what stage of their career they happen to be in. Are you just starting out? Or maybe you're in the meaty middle of your career. Maybe you're enjoying some veteran status while still seeking out new challenges. Well, whatever the case, I got you covered right here on Till We Make It. And if you happen to be as passionate about pro wrestling as I am, well, consider joining the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe down below, or follow the link to my Patreon where you can get access to tons of exclusives that I release each and every month. And stay tuned to the end of today's video where I'm going to give you a chance to get my new audiobook, Toolbox, Building Better Pro Wrestling, absolutely free. This design hack that I want to share with you today is the kind of thing you've got to bake into your structure beforehand while you are still planning the match. It is not the kind of thing you're going to want to try and invent on the fly after you've already walked this match out to the ring. It just requires a little bit of forethought and a little bit of advanced knowledge. And this is the sort of thing that will not work in a match that's only got 2 participants. But it will work in situations like a tag team match, which has 4, a trios match, which has 6, and Atomicos, which has 8, or other scenarios in which you've got more than 2 players in the ring at a time. I think a little thoughtfulness regarding the elements that you have at your disposal and the order in which you deploy them is critical to the way the audience is going to receive and engage with your match. And that thought is not an original one of mine. I stole it outright from the brilliant TED Talk by Andrew Stanton of Pixar Films. And this TED Talk contained at least 4 really profound storytelling points that have direct correlations to what we make in professional wrestling. And if you've never had the chance to see it, I'll make sure to link you right to it. So this doesn't trip us up later on, I want to set a certain scenario aside, and that is a situation in which everyone just begins fighting with each other at the very opening of the match. If everyone's going to be active right from the get-go, this has no application. And why might you choose to do that? Well, it could be because that's what suits the story. It could be because that's what's preordained for you by whoever wrote the segment. Or it could be as simple as that is the one thing the card is lacking and you decide to bring it. But those scenarios where all the wrestlers are in the ring right from the get-go, all fighting one another, we got to place that aside. And instead, we're going to talk about those scenarios where we could potentially withhold a pairing of 2 wrestlers that the audience is really anticipating. So like I alluded to just a moment ago, you do need a little advanced knowledge for this to work. And the advanced knowledge you must have is this. What is the pairing the audience is anticipating most? Because ultimately, we're going to withhold that. So just for the purpose of an example, let's talk about a tag team match. Let's say you and I are promoting a card that happens to feature Demolition against the Young Bucks. Now, in a conventional sense, there are only 4 ways this match could possibly start, right? We could start with Matt Jackson in the ring, and he could take on Demolition Axe or Demolition Smash. Or Nick could start in the ring, and he could take on Demolition Axe or Demolition Smash. But that's it. Those are the 4 options that we have for a conventional start to a tag match. Just those 4, no more. So armed with the advanced knowledge of which pairing the audience anticipates most, you're going to implement this design hack. You are going to withhold the matchup of those 2 wrestlers until the last possible moment. And I'll give you 3 very specific examples just to illustrate what I'm talking about. So continuing on with the extra awesome example of Demolition against the Young Bucks, let's say coming into this that we know the most anticipated pairing happens to be Nick Jackson against Demolition Smash. We could choose to withhold that exact matchup until the final pairing of the Shine. It would be the last thing the audience sees in Act 1. Pro tip for you, if you make that move, putting the most anticipated pairing in the match at the end of Act 1, wait for the action between those two wrestlers to begin to peak and place your cutoff there. Then seg directly into Act 2 to ensure you get the maximum reaction. Alternatively, a different example. You could withhold that most anticipated pairing until the hot tag. That way, rewarding the audience's anticipation will help launch your third act and give it a little extra oomph as you begin that ascent toward the climax of the performance. Well, here's a different idea. You could choose to withhold that most anticipated pairing all the way until the go-home sequence of the match. Another pro tip for you. I think this is going to work best in matches that have shorter run times. So, if you need to put on a tag match, which is 30 minutes long, and you withhold that most anticipated pairing from the audience until minute 29, I think it could cost you some of the audience's engagement in a best case scenario. In a worst case scenario, you may find the audience actually turns on the match. If upon hearing this explained, you're thinking to yourself, Mike, why is a design element like this even important in the first place? Well, the reason I think it is important is because getting audience engagement and maintaining their attention is more difficult than ever before. Chances are, every single person watching your match has a smartphone in their pocket, which can give them instant access to a nearly infinite amount of wrestling alternatives to watch and enjoy. And that's if they aren't already using that smartphone to watch your match in the first place. When the audience is already anticipating a certain pairing in your tag or your trios or your atomicos, they come primed with investment in the match. And why might they anticipate a certain pairing? Well, it could be because there was some great verbal dueling in a series of back and forth promos that helped build up the match. And now the audience is especially interested to see what will happen when the two principal speakers finally square off. Or maybe the last time these teams were mixed up in some kind of match, the finish to that bout created an open loop in the story, and the audience now craves the next chapter, or they crave the conclusion of that story. Or maybe the audience believes that in real life, Nick Jackson and Demolition Smash hate each other because of the infamous Diet Dr. Pepper screwjob. Whatever it is that gets them to bring that anticipation to the match, you don't want to squander that pre-existing engagement. So in order for you to harness that anticipation, it just requires a little careful consideration of the elements that you have and the order in which you plan to deploy them. That way, you can maximize the reaction you're going to get from that audience. Now, I don't doubt there are some people watching who already get consistently amazing reactions for every single thing that they do in the ring. And that's awesome. But me, I am not so lucky. I don't rely on luck at all. I depend on design. And any of us can design a match that withholds the most anticipated pairing so that that gentle simmer of engagement from the audience slowly heats up and begins to boil. The design of a match is key to its overall success. So, for more on design and structure, click on this video right now. And if you'd like to get my latest and greatest Toolbox, Building Better Pro Wrestling, there is a link in the description below. And clicking on that not only helps me a little bit, but it will enable you to get my latest book for fellow professional wrestlers absolutely free.